had to say. In addition, what's happening now reflects where we are, and it influences where we're headed. And so the fact that Donald Trump is going from being the front runner to, in my estimation, no longer the front runner is important. And it's important to discuss why. And of course, of great interest to everybody here and the country to understand where things are headed. Some of you may have had time to read the note I sent earlier, a special edition of Wide World of News, laying out why I think the Republicans are in a tough position right now. Talked to so many strategists in both parties, text, email, phone calls this weekend. And I think unless a Republican works for the Trump campaign directly, in my conversations, they don't believe Trump is the favorite. And they give him anywhere from a 30% chance to a 48% chance. Today, that's today, just as polls are snapshots, these conversations are snapshots of where we are. And three conversations in particular were very informative to me and influential in shaping how I see where things are. Three Republicans with great national political experience, three Republicans who very much do not want Kamala Harris to win, three Republicans who've given to Donald Trump's campaign or raised money for him. And they had varying degrees of confidence that Trump would win, from someone who believes Trump is still the favorite, but who's associated with the campaign, to somebody who thinks if Trump executes, he'll win, to someone who thinks it's very unlikely Trump will win, barring some cataclysmic event, some change of fortune that impacts Kamala Harris. I don't know exactly what his chances of winning are, but again, I think they're currently below 50%. I don't put them much below 50%, but I do put them below 50% today because of some of the dynamics that I've written about and talked about. There's three big questions to me that interact that will really play a decisive role in determining whether he can win and whether she can hold on. One is, how liberal is she, and how liberal will her record be exposed as? She's quite liberal, and she's repudiated a lot of her most liberal positions through anonymous advisors, basically saying she now holds the position of the administration in which she serves, rather than the positions she took as a senator and as a presidential candidate on her own in 2019. Someday she'll have to explain at least some of those position changes, and there'll be more unearthed about positions she's taken in the past. But she would be the most liberal president ever elected. She would be, in the modern era at least, she would be significantly more liberal if her previous positions held, not the Biden administration positions. She'd obviously be more liberal than the administration in which she serves. So that's one factor, is just sort of how liberal does she get painted as being. Two is, how effective is Donald Trump in prosecuting that case? If this were George W. Bush, I don't have any doubt that the level of how liberal she is would be put front and center. And I think the chances of undermining her credentials as a commander-in-chief would also be pretty effectively raised by George W. Bush, whose I think political talents were underrated. I don't know whether Donald Trump will be able to do that. The most bullish people on his side say, well, he's undisciplined and flailing now, but he'll focus come the debate, come September, October, and he'll be able to put that in sharper relief. We'll see. The third thing is the media, and whether the media, if Trump does a good job of talking about her record, whether the media buys into that or at least puts it on the conveyor belt. And if you look at previous attempts by presidential candidates to paint the opposition in unflattering terms, it requires some media buy-in. Now, the good news for Trump, as I wrote earlier today, is that the portrait he wants to paint of her, not up to the job, not able to win a general election, very liberal, not someone who the country should trust to lead the nation. That's a portrait that many Democrats and many in the media believed a month ago, but it's been erased by what's happened. And as I've said before, the media now has a single mission, is to stop Donald Trump from winning. So the performance he would have to give to get the media to focus on what he wants them to focus on, her liberal positions from the past and her partnership with Joe Biden on immigration and the economy, it's going to be a very hard thing to do, and much harder if his level of discipline is as low as it's been. So this weekend, if you asked any Republican, congressional Republican, strategist, donor, many voters who want Trump to win, what's he need to do? They'll say he needs to be disciplined, not in talking about all these things. I could list them off, all the things he's been talking about, but just talking about the issues contrast on the issues most important to voters and her past positions. He was at private fundraisers out west, and the reports I got out of those were he basically talked about the crowd size and how his crowds are bigger than hers. And that one is particularly galling to people because when he talks about crowd size, or he talks about polling, it makes up leads in polling, or when he talks about January 6th, any of these things are totally galling to strategically minded, tactically minded Republicans. Today, he posted something that it took me a couple hours to accept that it's true, that this is not a parody site. But on Truth Social, he posted this, and some of you probably have seen this. He's here in this post, he's positing that her crowd in Michigan was non-existent. And really what it was an AI-generated series of images that suggested he had a big crowd. Or she had a big crowd, rather. This is sort of the last thing in the world that his supporters who want him to be disciplined would like to see. There's so many unhinged things about this. There's nothing positive about it. It's just him obsessing more over crowd size. And I will say that it comes at a bad time for those who are looking to him to demonstrate more discipline. But I'll also say, you can take that down. Thank you. That people forget that he won in 2016 and he almost won in 2020 behaving like this. There's some reasons to think that perhaps he can't win behaving like this, or this time, or that his behavior is worse. I don't think his behavior is worse. I could give you a lot of examples of things he said in 2016 and 2020 that were pretty much in line with that. But most political professionals do not believe that that kind of thing is compatible with doing what he needs to do to win. Last thing I'll say is if you watch Republicans talking, including the president, the former president and his running mate, but Tom Cotton and others, out talking about this race, their big thing is she's got to have a press conference. She's got to have a press conference. She's got to answer questions. She's got to do an interview. I think they're setting themselves up potentially for a big problem because she could do those things and do great or more than good enough. And again, the bar will be set by a dominant media that right now she can do no wrong with. I don't think that their confidence that her having a press conference or doing an interview is a silver bullet is warranted. And again, I think they're setting themselves up, if she performs well, for a real problem. Many people are looking to the debate. Again, I'd say the same thing. Who judges who wins the debates if it's not a clear knockout? And the press, to a large extent, social media too, but the dominant media does a lot of it. And so I'm not sure they can say she's going to lose. She's going to lose the debate. I'm not sure they can say the minute she sits down for an interview or press conference, the whole thing's exposed, particularly because chances are she's not going to be doing an interview or calling on people at a press conference who are going to ask her the hardest questions. That just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And I don't think, I think, whether she does an interview with Jen Psaki or the cast of The West Wing or someone else, it's hard to imagine a scenario, to me, where she puts herself in a position, if she's prepared, where she's going to do poorly. And so they're sort of hanging everything on that. Seems like a bad idea to me.